Okay, back again, relaxed performance video, back with the microphone. As always, I do feel like I should be dressed up for this. I can't lie, I don't know why. Actually, wait, I've got something, give me a second. So, I saw this the other day, and it was only £3, so I couldn't help myself but buy it. I think that looks pretty cool, I can't lie. But no, I could not take myself seriously if I wear this for the whole video. But I think, you know, it might have to become a thing. It's really cool. Anyway, sorry, yes, back to relaxed performance. So I was invited down to the Other Palace Theatre in London to go see the relaxed performance of Heathers the musical. I do feel like I should be doing a show review here just because it was the first time I've ever seen Heathers before, and I've got a lot to say about it, but that's not what we're here for. We're here to talk about the relaxed performance. But yes, first of all, thank you, Heathers, for having me down. Had an amazing time. I'm very privileged, so thank you for the invite. So the difference between this and other relaxed performances I've been to is the other relaxed performances I've been to, Newsies and Back to the Future, which you've seen on this channel. I've seen those shows before. I know them like the back of my hand, so you know I know exactly what to expect and what all the changes will be and that kind of thing. Whereas with Heathers, not seeing it before, I was almost going into it a little bit blind, where I was more coming at it from the perspective of someone that has never seen it before and would be going to this as their first experience of this musical. I was a lot more invested in the kind of documentation that was sent out this time and that kind of thing. The light's doing the thing where it keeps changing again and it's really annoying me, but we go with it anyway. So a couple of weeks before the relaxed performance of Heathers took place, there was a document set out which they called the Relaxed Performance Pack, I believe. So this Relaxed Performance Pack included information about the venue, frequently asked questions, some little info about the characters, as well as a plot of the whole musical in case you wanted to be aware of that beforehand. And as well as that, I was also sent a trigger sheet with all the parts of the show that you might want to be aware of, so such as loud noises, sound effects, strobe effects, bright lights, all of those kind of things that you might just want to be aware of beforehand should you want to. So going back to the Relaxed Performance Pack, there was actually one FAQ which was all about loud noises or flashing lights, and this was just a segment from it that I'll read out to you. The house lights do not go down all the way, strobe lighting and flashes are avoided, and this is where I did unfortunately have my first issue beforehand. Within the trigger sheet, it did state that there would be flashing lights and it gave the exact points where these flashing lights would be, but then of course within the Relaxed Performance Pack it stated that these flashing lights and strobes would be avoided, and it's a little bit like, okay, so what am I to expect then? Because this sheet here says there are going to be flashing lights, but this sheet here says they're completely avoided. And going into it, I had no clue what to expect anymore. I've been told two completely different things, and it's just another thing to make me anxious about that it isn't clear and upfront straight away. If flashes are going to be avoided, then it needs to say that across both documents, rather than one thing in one and another thing in another. As well as this, within the Relaxed Performance Pack, as I said, there is a whole explanation of the plot in case you want to read that. And that was where another little issue was. This isn't too big. The way the whole plot explanation is laid out is quite overwhelming. It is just one big, sheet of paper going through the plot in a big bulk of writing. And within this writing, there is a few grammar mistakes and that kind of thing. And it's once again just another thing that adds onto it, which makes it almost seem a little bit more thrown together. That's not as big of an issue. But, if you're someone that you need to read the plot, but having it in such a form like that could put you off completely. It's another thing that's like, well, maybe this isn't for me then, and you're not gonna read that even though you might need to. But they were just a few of the problems that I had beforehand. Over to past Finn now, who's just arriving at the Other Palace Theatre. Okay, so we have arrived at the Other Palace. Not been to this theatre before, and I think the main difference between this and other relaxed performances that I've been to is that this is not a show I've seen before. So whereas with Back to the Future and Newsies, I've seen those shows multiple times, I know them like the back of my hand, but with this, I don't have a clue what to expect. I've seen the pro shot of it, but other than that, I'm just relying on the documents provided to know all about this show. I'm also here by Mike Connor, by the way.
Mike Connor?
Did you say Mike Connor? I don't really know what to expect, but the foyer doesn't seem very adapted so far. Not that I know what the foyer is usually like, but it's quite loud in here, lots of talking, lots of bright lights. But we'll see whether that continues to be a running theme throughout the show. So one thing that Connor has just advised I point out, which I didn't think of, is that when we first got here, being people that go to the theatre quite a lot, we know what we're doing, we know our way around the theatre, but we got here and we didn't know where to go, what to do, where we're meant to be. And usually...
I can add to this. Normally with a relaxed performance you add lots of additional signage, so people are 100% sure on, right, here's where I go to chill, here's where I go to see the show. You add all that stuff, but yeah, we literally walked in and both of us just went,
Yes, I have noticed a few signs around, but none pointing stuff out. They're like no more than you usually have. So that's definitely interesting. So there's meant to be a clip here when we just got into the auditorium just before the show started. That clip has gone missing. I don't know where it's gone. But within the information, it did say that the doors for the auditorium would open at 7 p.m. and they did actually open at 7 p.m. on the dot. And we were sat down in our seats within a couple of minutes of that. And it's very rare that that actually happens. So fair play. But I'm sure Past Finn will explain more to you in the interval. We've just come out from Act 1. Very good. Enjoyed it a lot. We've come upstairs to the restaurant actually, which has been used as a quiet room since they don't have a dedicated one, but it's quite chill up here. There's no one else up here. I don't know if you can see anything. But yeah, very much enjoyed so far. I was just saying a few minutes ago, it's probably the most relaxed performance I've been to. It doesn't help that, you know, the other relaxed performances I've been to have been big scale, high effect shows, and this isn't. But it's really good, and it's just a nice chill environment. The audience are nice and chill. Very good sound. It's a good level where you can still hear what's happening and you still get like the full experience, but you know, it's not too loud. It's nice and chill.
Candy store still slapped.
Connor said Candy Store still slapped, and it did. All the songs still slapped. So yeah, overall very good. Anyway,
You've got to keep that in.
so yes, at the start before Act 1 started, 3 of the cast came out on stage. Veronica, Heather, Chandler and JD, trying to remember the names, and they just introduced the show a little bit, introduced their characters, introduced, you know, that there'd be fighting and weapons and that kind of thing. But at all relaxed performances I've been to, they've done this, and it has always been good, but you know, at a couple of them it's been maybe a little bit patronising, but this is like the most chill and relaxed and natural it's just, you know, them talking about themselves in a way that they would to any other person, rather than almost pitying on the audience and assuming they're not going to understand normal ways of communication. So yeah, I quite enjoyed that, and it was very good to see. Do you have anything else to add? Connor has stuff to add. Okay.
So in that explanation bit, when they were talking about the guns, I thought it'd be really good if they showed off the gunshots at that moment, but because instead you're going to be, well, I was in suspense for the entire first act, going, oh, how loud's the gun going to be? So yeah, but no, I thought it was really good as well, and I can vouch on what Finn was saying. I've been to loads of relaxed performances, and that was really chill. It's really important to do it like that because it normalises it all. That's what we want.
There you go, all good stuff. Oh, has it zoomed in or?
It was quite zoomed in.
I didn't even realise I did that. Anyway, yes, Act 2. Yay, let's go. And it's out of focus now as well. Cool, yeah, Act 2. Okay, so we filmed nothing else after it finished, but yeah, I don't even know where to start talking about it. It was an absolutely incredible show. First of all, the first time I've ever seen it as well, other than the pro shot of it. Once again, thank you to Heathers for inviting me down. I feel so lucky that I managed to experience that. And genuinely, in terms of relaxed performances, the performance itself is one of the best I've ever seen. Of course, there isn't meant to be any huge effects or anything like that, but the sound levels were at a really, really good volume throughout, where you could still hear everything, but it wasn't overwhelming. There was never a single point during the show where I'm like, oh, this is a little bit too much, or that kind of thing. As well as this, as I mentioned in the interval, that introduction given by a few of the cast members at the beginning was absolutely amazing, and it normalised it so much. Connor explained it so well, and it just makes you feel, okay, this is, you know, I feel valid for needing this kind of thing before the show starts without it coming across as really patronising. And that was such an amazing thing to see. It's the best I've ever seen that kind of thing being done. During the interval, we did feel like we needed a quiet place to go to, and with there being no dedicated quiet room, We did ask about one, and they just let us use the upstairs restaurant, which was closed for the public at that time. So we were the only ones up there. It was nice and chill. So even though there wasn't a dedicated quiet place, at least we had somewhere to be. And that was a nice thing that was put in place by the theatre. Now, unfortunately, just onto a few of the negatives. There's not a huge amount of them. But I think one thing that I've realised, and I think this goes for a lot of relaxed performances, to be fair, but for particularly something we noticed at Heathers, was that the whole foyer experience and what happens before and afterwards is almost put in second place. And I think theatres and the companies putting on these relaxed performances need to realise that the whole thing, start from finish, needs to be more accessible. It's not just about the show itself, it's from the moment that guest arrives, it needs to be more accessible. There needs to be signage put in place telling people where to go, what to do. The lights need to be dimmed if possible, because when we walked in, it was extremely bright straight away, and outside it was still light. And the theatre is completely surrounded by windows. So if the interior lights had been turned off, it'd still be bright enough inside to see without it being too overwhelming. Of course, when it does get darker, that's a bit more of an issue. But I'm sure the lighting can be adjusted to fix this. It does just make it a little easier and a little less stressful. As well as this, unfortunately, the bar area and the whole foyer area was really loud. People talking at very, very high volumes. I didn't even notice if there was music playing or not within the foyer, just because of the levels that people were speaking at. And this is where I almost don't think that a lot of people that attended were aware that it was a relaxed performance, and if they were aware, they either didn't know what a relaxed performance was, or just didn't take it as seriously as these kind of things should be taken. And you can't fully blame that on the guests, of course, not at all. But it also needs to be a lot more obvious across the theatre, across the website, that this is a relaxed performance, and the people attending this are attending because they might be unable to visit regular performances, and this could be their one opportunity to see that show that they've always wanted to. And it's these little things that can just make the experience completely inaccessible to them, which is why it's the whole length of time that people are there that stuff needs to be adapted for. Just because sitting in that bar beforehand, it was very overwhelming, and we had to move out of the way. Another little thing we noticed, once again to do with signage, we were queuing up to go in or waiting around, the area to go in near the door to the auditorium. And I was like, oh, okay, I need to go and get a programme. So I went to where the merch stand was, and there was a sign on the front of the merch stand saying that it wasn't currently open. I don't know if I got a video of it or not. If I did, I'll insert it here. But this confused me a little bit, so I went over to the woman that was waiting at the door. I could see she was holding programmes, and I asked her if I could buy one from there. She said that she could only take cash from there, but if I went over to the merch counter, I could pay using card from there, which is what I wanted to do. So I went over to the merch counter, asked if I could buy a programme from there, and they were completely fine with it. So clearly it was open, and as I was buying the programme, they did change the sign around. So I'm assuming it was just something they forgot to do, but it was just another little thing that added to the confusion, and it just needs to be really, really clear. One other issue I had was within the relaxed performance pack that I mentioned. It did mention that there'd be someone on the door doing bag searches, which there was, but it also mentioned there'd be a member of staff to welcome you into the theatre and just help you out, tell you where you needed to go and that kind of thing. And there was staff dotted around the front of the foyer, but no one that was directing you where to go for those kind of things. And I think that's just something that if it says that's going to happen within the relaxed performance pack, then it needs to be something that does happen. Otherwise, don't put it in. And just one last tiny thing that I can think of was that, as I mentioned at the beginning, there was the issues with inconsistency between the relaxed performance pack and the trigger sheet, where within the trigger sheet it said, oh, there'll be bright lights at this point, but then within the relaxed performance pack it said bright lights and strobes are avoided. And luckily those bright lights didn't happen at all, which is really good. But it's just like, because if you know they're not going to happen, then you can take that bit out of the trigger sheet and it's completely fine, because it's one less thing to worry about and to become anxious about. But what there was a couple of points in the show which were completely unnecessary, where there was stuff like torches or spotlights being shined into the audience, and it was completely unnecessary, I won't lie. These added nothing at all to the performance and really weren't needed, so I don't know why they were there, especially since they were bright lights. And there were a couple of points I was like, okay, this is a little bit too much. Why are they using these lights? And these bits weren't mentioned in the trigger sheet. I don't think they planned the trigger sheet quite in line with how the performance was going to go. And I do think these little things, and incredibly obvious things as well, do just need to be removed completely, because, like I said, they add nothing. It wouldn't affect the story at all. if you didn't know the performance beforehand, then you wouldn't know that these are things that are missing. But that is just a little tiny thing. But it'd be really nice going forward to see that being dealt with. A lot of my criticisms were quite picky, but once again, this could be someone's one chance at going to see that show that they've always wanted to. And it's opening it up to a whole new audience. So this kind of stuff does need to be done right. But I am only being so picky just because the performance itself was so good. And I see so much potential there that I feel like just with these little tiny fixes, it would be such a good experience, and I feel like people would enjoy it so much. But of course, once again, I do need to give them their praises for what they did do well. And as I mentioned in the interval, it was an extremely relaxed performance, the actual performance itself. So fair play to them for that, and I'm really, really thankful for being invited down. So I really hope everyone enjoyed this. I hope it's helpful if you are going to see a relaxed performance at any point, or if you're just interested to see my thoughts. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. It really, really does help for channel 1. Turn notifications on as well so you never miss an upload. I'll see you a lot in the next one.